Chapter 6 Armistice. Returning to the Trappist system, at the sight of the recent loss to the task force sent to investigate the mysterious crash, by Decimus's command, hundreds of Orion squadrons consisting of 7 individuals each were deployed to the surrounding areas of both the village and the plains at large. Overhead were groups of aircraft with searchlights flying in formation to search of any signs of activity of Tiberius. Soaring at low altitude towards the crashed wreckage of the long-destroyed warship was the Firebird. On board was Decimus, Marlock, Calur, and Biaco, accompanied by their respective guards, all outfitted for combat. The guards stood readied, though their breathing slowly deteriorated into a nervous pace. Even Decimus, while strapped into the seats of the interior like everybody else, was tapping his feet on the floor and twirling his thumbs, deep in thought and weighed down by anxiety, calculating in his mind the possible outcomes to his next plan. Marlock noticed him. "You're right to think this plan is nuts, sir." The commander nodded. "But necessary. I need to get this situation back under control." "By taking hostages? Am I understanding this notion, yes?" "No, not hostages. We're above that stuff, but Balthazar has forced my hand." Marlock folded his arms and leaned back. "Oh?" "He sent a message to Eidolon." "Fuck me sideways, he really did? Bastard's on a suicide episode or what?" "More like a desperate call for whatever passes for divine intervention these days. He's converted to the faith." Marlock thought back to when Balthazar brought scrolls of light around his arms, and causing the flash of light that bleached the surrounding area in the fight with Tiberius before. It makes sense now. I witnessed him use the magic related to those who had been incorporated by the Illuminator himself. They called it the Disciples' Rays? Decimus gave a quick nod. The rays of the Disciples. The magic that a portion of the Faithful's number can do. Not only a convenient flashbang, but whatever is in its lights gets completely bleached. It scorches those that the caster sees with ire, while leaving those they see as a friend unharmed. So effective that even microbial life is eviscerated in completely. No amount of sanitization can compare. Calur had merely listened in on the conversation, but the mention of the Disciples' Rays compelled her to give an input. "So he was in it for a while. But we was never told that. We are primarily loyalists on this fleet, and those faithful are disclosed to us. It's a matter of security, as we all know. Works the other way around, too." The commander leaned forward. "Yes, only logical, and that's not mentioning the certainty that Eidolon will have a detachment of apostles. Maybe if he thinks it, he'll request from the Emperor a squadron from his Karadesh Legion. Your thoughts, Biaco?" Biaco took a few seconds to finish working on his datapad before chipping in. "Well, it's balls to the walls. Deployment of apostles would be most prudent course of action, given the recent failure of those 3 back there. As for Karadesh, well, that would help me sleep better knowing the Emperor's finest would be brought alongside the greatest of the Faithful's military. That'll get the job done." "You fought alongside Karadesh before, Biaco?" Calur asked, noting the admiration the ambassador had shown. "Yes, once. They're as good as anyone would tell you. It's because of one of them I became an ambassador in the first place. Just an ordinary one among their ranks that I managed to save on a surprise attack. He put in a word for me, and then I got promoted from there on. While hearing about them is good and all, there is one massive issue here. Marlock waited to see if any of them would get this meaning. Then Decimus spoke. They're not here, obviously, and we're ignoring the amount we have ourselves right now. But soon Eidolon will arrive, very little doubt about that, and it's important we make sure that when he does, the transition of power is smooth and with as little disruption as possible. That's not even considering future engagements we have with Tiberius will become problematic, since the faith militant procedure is to typically cite verses while charging headlong. There was still a elephant in the room. They were heading towards the Overer once again, and they all knew this would bring out Tiberius, though Decimus reassured them. I know that it's crazy that we're about to do this, so know this. Viako, patch me through to all channels. The Teesh ambassador was reluctant at first, risking more lives again. But he did what was asked, and the small antenna on his right ear began to transmit. This is Ship Commander Decimus. All units, this is Priority 1 message and order. Relay and echo this through all channels once received. I will engage in talks with our adversary shortly. I want to enforce a no-fly zone, in addition to no ground activity in a 5-mile radius of my position. The meeting point will be coordinates linked to your heads-up displays and comm tablets now. Vacate the designated area if you are currently in it. If you do have visual of Tiberius, do not engage. Patch through to channel Zeta 5 and use code word Omega 1. Repeat, Omega 1 is call sign for visual on Tiberius. Relay this with approach vectors and leave the rest. Last of all, under no circumstances should any forces be used in response to his presence or actions. We do not want to provoke him. Decimus out. For those who stand behind us, in support, we protect. Hundreds responded with a quick cheer before snapping into action. The radar screen showed the dots indicating units quickly moving away from a central golden spot, the crash site of the warship, and suspected retreat of the Obero. Color loads a light machine gun with belts for bullets and sits to the side of Decimus, tapping his shoulder to get his attention. At least one of us accompany you. And get killed? Well, should I fuck this up? 2 Geragyn Lords are dead, and the 3rd won't be able to walk for years if he even makes it. Jarl will oversee future operations should the worst happen to me. He looked to everybody else, and once again, no one interferes. You could throw me around like a chew toy, but you're not going to get involved. Correct? They all nod. The Firebird comes to a hover above the crash site and opens its rear hatch before the commander leaps out. He gestures for a cigar. Marlock holds some out, and he takes 2 and leaps to the ground beneath, turning to face the hatch and gives another nod. The Firebird flies away. Everyone sits down with Marlock loading the rifle. He's nuts, but he's quite the arrogant type at times. Cuddler leaned back, confusion on her face. This time may not be the case. No. Well, we gotta put trust in him. I can only imagine what's going through his mind right now. Decimus paced back and forth outside the wreckage of the warship. In the corner of his eyes, he could make out the eyes of the Obero staring at him from the shadows inside, and the blood of the recently killed Justicars from the last time he was down here. The only sound coming to his ears was a calm breeze and a rustling of leaves and branches. The bright tanned moon had taken a fifth of the sky above, and nocturnal creatures could be seen grazing on the plains, grasses and shrubbery. Yet over in the distance, the bright glow of a burning town was the only reminder of the peace being disturbed. A radio transmission came from orbit. "Commander, Jarl here. Your scanners indicate your blood pressure and heart rate is increasing. Erratic breathing and even your core temperature is climbing. Would you like medevac?" "No. Just watch, alright?" "Sir, are you sure you won't be emotionally compromised in this endeavor?" "Too late for that. Just let me relax a little. Less noise on the radio, copy?" "Copy." 10 minutes had passed. Nothing. But he had finally got his composure in order. He lit one of the cigars and took a long puff. A noise came from behind him. Wings flapping and a small thud of metal. He turned around to see it was Phaon, carrying a cane and a face of disgust. "Lot of nerve you have here coming near." Decimus took another puff, with one hand on his waist. "Same for you, with a mere stick, while I have these on me." He unsheathed his curved sword, but stabbed it into the ground, followed by his pistol, 2 flashbangs, grenade, and flare. "But I'm not here for combat." "That's oddly familiar. Some 40-foot tall bloke said that a while back, though I misinterpreted what peace really means for you. Our town sure as hell has seen better days when others said the same thing." "Well, not very good at justifying the actions of your men, are you? 27. That's how many we've lost, and 3 times that are injured." He still didn't say anything. "Speak, damn it! You may not be here for a fight, but if you won't give me a reason not to shove this cane up your ass, then I can't justify it, so I don't say anything." Decimus finally snapped. "Sorry will not bring them back, nor heal the wounded. And those who have brought that on you have been soundly punished by Tiberius. But if you want some closure, we was ready to put them on trial for those actions." "Really? Then why are you here then? To rub it in our faces or finish the job?" Decimus kneels down to look at Phaon at eye level. "I am here to finish what was started without the bloodshed. Innocents have been lost for this engagement, and I must atone and make peace in some manner. You don't know, and wouldn't, but there are others from where I serve from that would see this as the most pathetic act to do. If they were in my place, they wouldn't have stopped at your town, or the rest." He stood back up. "Would you be your people's representative?" "No, not me. My queen, though. I am too angry to make a rational decision right now. What for? This some sort of trap for ritual combat? The commander shook his head. "It's for a treaty, and I am counting on our third party to arrive. I hate to admit it, but I came here to give off the impression of violence so that I can draw him out." "Well, you really must be mad, because he may just be as if not even more angry than I, and he is well equipped to plaster you all over these walls." "But would he have come out to talk if I had an army at my back to talk? Or if I was merely alone in the woods? He'd kill me and everyone around me with a moment's hesitation." Phaon understood, and gives a nod behind him for Queen Maeve. She glides down, accompanied by her royal guards, and perches on a steel beam, the guards positioned in front of her, spears at the ready. Taking his time, Decimus sits down on a metal crate and continues to smoke the cigar gently, as to not waste time and fine quality. A small red light pops up on his radio, and Jarl hastily reports. I have movement. Squad Delta 7 has issued call sign Omega 1, approaching due south from your location. Contact in 20 seconds. Decimus thinked to himself. 5 miles in 20 seconds? He's in a hurry. Your Majesty, you don't have the right to address me with pleasantries. I've had enough hollow words for the day. Well, Tiberius will be joining us very soon. Well, I hope he wishes to talk. It'll be a shame to let you go back in one piece. The quills on Decimus's head began to rattle. Before he could turn back to face the planes, a blur dashed past him and struck him, catapulting him 20 feet into the air and slamming against the ship's hull, making a dent where he struck. Before he could hit the floor, he was hit once more, sliding across the wall with sparks behind him as his armor scraped against the steel. The Oberó could be heard laughing and cheering for Tiberius as Decimus was thrown around. One hit launched him towards Maeve, where the blur placed himself in front and caught him, finally revealing it to indeed be Tiberius. Still covered in bruises, a few scratches and burn marks on his skin, and a torn jacket revealed in his chiseled torso. Tiberius dropped him to the floor, turned around and bent a metal beam, fashioning it into an improvised spear. Catching his breath and rolling to face Tiberius, Decimus held out his hand and shouted, "May the restraint of Argus calm us both!" The phrase froze Tiberius in place. Before he hurled the beam away, "Do not cite my people's customs! How would you even know?" Decimus coughed some blood before slowly standing himself back to his feet and reigniting his cigar. "It's not the first time I've had to speak with a high-ranking official of the Federation before." He offers the second cigar he had took to Tiberius, who cautiously took it and lit it up, before sitting down next to Maeve. "And who would have spoken to that would you recite that phrase?" "Fleet Admiral Vasquez. During the last days of the war." "What happened to him?" Tiberius asked, gritting his teeth. Decimus took another puff. "He bargained himself in return for safe passage of his evacuation ships to pass the blockade we had set up above your homeworld." He looked at him right in the eyes. "It was agreed. His life for theirs. He died that day, though he denied anyone the right to take him. The cunning man managed to sneak an explosive on board and took out the ship's captain and crew. Before any retaliation could be done, those very ships blew right past." Tiberius took another puff of his cigar and noticed the brand of the leaves. It was a brand originating from his home planet, and was a favourite of the very fleet admiral they were speaking of. "These were the only things that could be recovered, and I think you deserve a piece of home. Appropriating the property of deceased heroes will tick away the seconds you might have left. So, choose your next words wisely, boy." Both took a puff from their cigars. "Tiberius Soren, King of the Daedian Federation, it is on behalf of the safety of my crew, the Oberó, and yourself that I have come to negotiate an armistice." "Typical imperialists," retorted Maeve. "Always sue for peace when they're already struck the first blow in fear of retaliation. Such snivelling treble!" "While it would appear that way, milady, what he has done to those who have done the violence has served justice. The third one, Balthazar, will probably never walk again, and in his culture, it's the worst kind of hell. I would be surprised if I actually do go back onto my ship and discovered he'd already blown his brains out. Good, added Tiberius. And it's in your best interest to get the fuck off this planet. And that's what I wish to do, but with a few conditions. All these conditions can be whether or not I send you to your ship in a body bag, thrown up to it from here, crashing into the hull in a red mist. Is that the way you wish? And the former sounds very tempting. You have a minute. Convince me why I shouldn't. He takes another puff of his cigar. Go. While you would love to paste me all over the walls, think of this. You know the size of the Orion Empire. Now you are just one man, and I assume you simply want to exist on this world in peace. Well, I can give you that. I can pretend that the ship behind us simply got struck by a comet, that there is no life on this planet, and without valuable resources. But that also means that if you get a ticket off this world, you deny it. Because right now, I am being monitored. But my crew would sleep better knowing their boogeyman is content with staying here. Because if you want violence, you know full well my ship can transmit that we've already lost some Geragyn Lords to you. Then they'll send the big guns. Perhaps, knowing you, they might even send the Emperor himself. I do this out of respect for you, as a leader who had to worry about a lot of lives. Must have been hell for you back then. So, my demand is simply to stay put on this world, and I will cover up this entire operation. You know full well there are those higher up than me that wouldn't stop just at you, but the rest on this planet under the belief that they had helped you, regardless of whatever protest I could give to proclaim their innocence. Maeve gestures to Tiberius to lean over and let her whisper into his ear. He's bluffing on the size of the forces he's referring to, right? Tiberius slowly shook his head. Think you can take him and the others before they get a message out? Another slow shake of his head. You think you can trust his promise? Another shake of the head. He couldn't hear, but reading the body language of them both, Decimus could tell they were weighing the options and had to hold back their anger in decision-making. Tiberius stands and grits his teeth. I accept. But here are my conditions, too. I see any of your boys on this world. Hell, even if I see a simple craft in orbit, you better make sure it doesn't accidentally land and is accidentally hijacked. Leave me and everyone else alone, as you promise, and in turn, I'll let you sleep soundly. Decimus nodded. His mind calms and he takes a sigh of relief. So it will be. Farewell, Tiberius. With one last puff, the cigar expired. He makes his way down the slope of the wreckage and radios in for pickup. Seconds later, the Firebird can be seen in the distance closing in. He turns back around. I'm ashamed to have come across you before. And now. And why's that? Decimus reached into a pocket attached to his assault belt and pulled out what appeared to have been a pin badge. The symbol was lined with gold and shaped like a winged shield. Inside the rim was a sapphire gem that was engraved like a grinning skull. As he boards the Firebird, He turns and throws it to Tiberius. Both our pasts came back to haunt us this day. The hatch closes and heads straight up towards the sky, with other transports seen as little dots ascending back to the ship. Tiberius looked at the trinket. Recognizing it, he turns it to the other side where the name Alejandro Vasquez was scratched on by a knife. He gripped the trinket and held it close to his chest, as his enhanced vision watches the small dots of light coalesce into the ship in orbit, before vanishing into a flash of light. Maeve hovers in front of him. Is it done? Tiberius nods. Despite his honesty, I could tell you he wasn't lying. The body exerts itself in ways different to what it would do to tell the truth. I doubt it will speak for the rest of his crew. Eventually, word will get out. It is only a matter of time before those that want revenge lead their own crusade here. And the Emperor may not even care, or even encourage it. The Queen scoffs. So, what was the point in all that bullshit? Her profanity stunned Phaon and the others. She usually kept her cool, and only sounded condescending when she had to exercise her status. Now she threw that to the wind. To buy you time. To think of some way to mitigate their influence on you. Because then when they come, could take weeks, months, or years. I'm being generous, but if they'll finish me off eventually, then you're next, if you don't accept their rule. So I'd advise you contemplate, plan, and act on forming autonomy with them after they brought me down. Hell, you can even say you helped bring me in. That'll earn you some praise. Phaon protests. Absolutely not. I wouldn't turn you in. Best for us is to follow you on with what we agreed on earlier. That you leave us be. Completely. Tiberius turns to look at the still burning village. It would be best. But before I go, I need to know what you plan on doing now. Phaon reached into a rucksack to his left and pulled out a map. Simple, we'll journey to the capital. Those that can walk will ensure our transportation can carry those that can't. We'll take the routes leading through farmlands to stock up on supplies along the way. We'll make the journey. He looks towards Maeve. Your Highness, we can accommodate for them. It's sad to say, but the village is gone for now. We can rebuild later. But now, we've all had our fair share of hardships tonight. We should rest before we start. Maeve snaps her fingers to her guards, who quickly set out tools to build tents and organize a makeshift kitchen. She waves to Tiberius to follow her to the entrance of the ship's interior. They both just before the entrance stop. Inside the Oberó, men, women, and children who fled can all be seen. I hope you going will mean you take the problems of today with you. But you did also stop them from finishing us off back there. So as a thanks, you may rest here for the night before we part ways. I thank you for your hospitality, Your Highness. Permission to ask a question? She nodded. I am aware there's another race of people on this world. The Makala, if Phaon told me right. I've never seen them myself. I assume you know where they live, or at least the direction? Yes. They've got this thing called technology, carriages that fly and move without a creature to pull them. Though their skin is leathery and they love the water more than ever. As for where they live, you see those mountains over there? She pointed over to them. On the other side is their land, though there are valleys between them that make journeying easier, but they're over a week's journey from here. I believe someone of your abilities will be able to go right through them.
Thank you, and I am sorry for not being able to stop it all.
Perhaps, though I fear you may need to be more prepared if your suspicions do come true. Maeve returned to organising her people, while Tiberius leapt to the top of the wreckage with some rugs given to him by Phaon to sleep under. He digs his hands into the metal and pulls it away from his hinges, making a cover for him to rest under. Outside the star system, the Pyrrhic negotiation darts past the last planet, only visible for even less than a blink of an eye, as the ship readies itself to accelerate far past light speed. In the conference room, Decimus is accompanied by many officials, including Marlock, Calla, Jarl, Biako, and Dagmafor, as well as soldiers who have had visual contact with Tiberius.
Jarl, ensure this room is isolated from all listening devices. This room does not exist from outside, understand?
Already is, Commander. With a nod, everyone present sits around the table. Decimus claps his hands and addresses to all.
What is said in here will remain in here. Not a single word leaves this room. Are we all clear?
And that concludes Chapter 6. Tune in soon for Chapter 7, where we learn what Decimus will plan in order to cover up the operation at hand, and hope, for his sake and all the others, that it goes well.